The next image we're going to work on is selection image number 2, which is the watch. We're going to open the watch, and basically anytime you do a selection, you want to utilize the selection tool that's best for the job. Now I could use the um, magic wand tool, I could use the quick selection tool, or I could use a pen tool to meticulously go around and make this selection. I'm going to choose the magic wand tool because I feel like it's going to be the quickest and give me the best um, selection possible. Now I could also use one of the lasso tools, the magnetic lasso, because the magnetic lasso works off of the contrast between the edges here of the pixels, and it would automatically draw a line around the image as I just move my cursor around. Now that does a pretty good job. Maybe that's what I want to use. It's just the magnetic lasso. Oops, kind of messed up there. But I'm going to hit escape, and not because I want to show you how to use the magic wand tool in a way that gets you a really sharp edge selection. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the background image over here in the layers palette. I'm going to make sure that the background image is selected, which it is. It's the only layer we have. And I'm going to do Control J, and that's going to make an exact duplicate of the background layer. Now, once I do that, I'm going to take layer 1 and I'm going to use an image adjustment of levels. Okay? And I'm going to drag the black slider all the way over so that I get a really sharp outline of the watch. Now I'm going to take, again, my magic wand tool, or if you're not on it, just hit W and then make sure you're on magic wand, not quick selection. And I'm going to click the white area, which selects all the white pixels that are touching each other because we have contiguous checked here. So it's going to only pick white pixels that are touching each other, which is the outside of this image. Then I'm going to inverse it. I'm going to say select the inverse. And what that does is moves the marching ants from the outside here to just around what's on the inside that wasn't selected before. Now, I don't really care about this new layer I made with everything, the levels changed, so I'm just going to throw it away into this little trash can on the layers palette. And again, I have my marching ants going around the outside of my watch. I'm going to go up here to select and mask and click that button on the options bar, and I'm going to look at the view to be on black because I'm going to combine this with another image, and it looks like if I do it right now I'm going to have a little white line all the way around the outside. So I want to use some of my refinements here to smooth that out and to move it in slightly so that the white goes away. So first I'm going to move the smooth control to about a midpoint, which helps smooth that selection. Then I'm going to shift the edge to the inside, maybe, well, if I do it 100%, I may, looks pretty good, like I'm losing most of the white. And then I'm going to feather it just a little bit, which if you watch the videos, feathering just kind of blurs the line between what you have that you want and the background. So I'm gonna maybe do 3 or 4 pixels. What have I got about? I'm gonna say 4 pixels, and then I'm going to say OK. Now my watch is selected. I'm going to do Control C or Command C on a Mac. That copies that image that's inside the marquee to the clipboard. That's important. It's being held in the clipboard until I open a new image for this to be placed into. So I'm going to go back and open this silver background 01, and then I'm going to edit, paste the image of my watch right onto the uh, background. Now, if you remember from your previous assignments, we can change the size of this by doing edit, transform, free transform. Well, there it is, sorry. Control T, free transform. And if I hold down shift, it's going to keep it in uh, proportion so it doesn't become long, elongated, or short and fat. Then I'm going to take this, I'm going to turn it just a little bit for some difference. So I'm going to put that on, and I'm going to double click, or I can come up here and click the arrow, or the check mark says commit this transformation. And now that looks pretty good, but let's go ahead and try our hand at something else. Down here in the layers palette, you have an effects menu, FX. Click that effects menu and you'll see that you have a drop shadow. We're going to try to make this look a little more three-dimensional. So open the background blur image, and we're going to drop shadow. The drop shadow, and we're going to change some of these options here. It's on drop shadow, as you can see on the left-hand side of the styles, and then we're going to make sure that the blend mode is set to normal, and that the opacity, you can set it to either to be a really heavy shadow or a very light shadow, depending on where you drag that opacity level. You can also control here the angle from which the light comes. So if you want the light to come from the left to the right, you move your little arrow or slider to the left. It can come from the bottom. It can come from the upper right-hand corner, which I'm going to choose. And then we can choose the distance that the shadow is from the subject, and we can choose how spread out it is or how big it is. So the size of it controls how fine that edge is. So if you see, I can put a pretty good spread and then blur it out. I'm going to move the distance back in. I don't think I want it to spread quite that much. There we go. You don't have to use these exact measurements. Just do it to what you think looks good and go ahead and apply it and say, okay. Now, if you wanted to change anything else, these are still independent layers. So I could come to the background and I could do something like make it lighter or darker using a levels command. Or I could come up here and do image, adjust the hue saturation, which controls the color this is. Now it looks black and white, but it's really a color image. So if I move the slider, you'll see it change slightly the variation of colors in the background. So maybe I want to do that, or I can change the saturation and the colors become more pronounced. Or I could move the saturation all the way to the left and it would be completely gray with no color at all. So however you want to do that, it's fine. Go ahead and leave the layers, and then I want you to take that image and change the image size down to only 800 pixels wide. Say OK. So it's going to change because you have this checked or linked, so it's going to change it in proportion, 500 tall, 800 wide. And we're going to save that as selection. Oh, sorry. We're going to call this Mike Brown. And actually, we need to be saving it as underscore selection underscore 02. This is the second image we've worked on as a Photoshop document. So do that, and then you can go ahead and close these out because we're done with them. You don't need to save them.